The night was set to be unforgettable. Beneath the chandeliers of the Metropolitan Opera House, the annual Global Arts and Science Gala was in full swing. Billionaires, artists, Nobel laureates, and AI developers mingled in tailored tuxedos and sleek gowns. It was a place where culture met innovation, and where worlds that rarely overlapped were forced to acknowledge one another. Elon Musk arrived later than expected. Dressed in a simple black suit with no tie, he exuded calm dissonance. People whispered as he entered, not just because of who he was, but because of the rumors. Word had spread that he was planning to unveil something unexpected at the event, something that had the classical elite on edge. In the center of the hall, a glossy black Steinway grand piano waited under a soft spotlight. Tonight's centerpiece performer was Julian Crane, a world-renowned pianist, known as much for his talent as for his ego. And tonight, he was more flamboyant than usual. When he spotted Musk entering, he smirked to his assistant. Silicon Valley's Frankenstein finally decided to show up, he whispered, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. Julian's opening performance was a thunderstorm of notes and flair, capped off with a mocking flourish. As the applause faded, he turned toward the audience with a playful grin and said, "Music, unlike algorithms, requires soul." The room chuckled. Elon remained stone-faced. A few moments later, the event's host took the stage, announcing an open segment for anyone who wished to share a musical piece or thought. It was meant to be ceremonial. But then, something unexpected happened. Musk stood up. At first, the room thought he was leaving, but instead, he walked toward the stage. Whispers turned to gasps. Julian's grin tightened. Elon approached the Steinway, slowly, silently. He didn't say a word as he took a seat at the piano, cracking his knuckles with the stiff elegance of someone who hadn't touched ivory keys in decades. The crowd went dead silent. Then Elon began to play. Elon's fingers hovered over the keys for a heartbeat, then descended with a soft, deliberate strike. The notes that emerged weren't flashy. They weren't technically demanding, but they were haunting. He began with a minimalist progression. 3 chords, looping, slowly evolving like code unfolding in real time. There was no sheet music, no rehearsal, just instinct. His left hand laid the foundation like an engineer plotting infrastructure. His right danced across the higher register, tentative at first, then confident, even poetic. The room, once filled with giggles and sideways glances, grew reverently still. Julian Crane's smirk faded. His expression twisted into something between disbelief and reluctant admiration. The irony was unbearable. This was the kind of musical phrasing that could only be born of someone who truly understood silence. Someone who wasn't trained to perform, but who had felt something so deeply that he could express it through pure sound. Elon didn't look at the crowd. His eyes were closed, focused inward, like he was decoding himself in real time. Each note was precise, yet vulnerable, mathematical, yet human. He shifted keys. The mood changed subtly. Dissonant tones crept in, not by mistake, but with purpose. It was like he was reflecting the very tension in the room, the disconnect between machine and man, art and science, ego and humility. People weren't just watching. They were leaning forward, moved. A few audience members recorded it quietly, realizing they were witnessing something unprecedented. Not just Elon Musk playing the piano, but Elon Musk telling a story without using a single word. One of redemption, of respect, of rebellion, and then silence. He lifted his hands, no final flourish, no bow. He simply stood, nodded once to the stunned audience, and returned to his seat. The applause was hesitant at first. Then it grew. louder, stronger, until the entire opera house thundered with standing ovation. Julian Crane did not clap. He just sat there, blinking, as the camera flashes ignited around the man who had just rewritten the evening's narrative. By the time Elon Musk's performance video hit the internet, it was already too late for Julian Crane to control the story. A young TikTok user had posted a 38-second clip titled, "When Elon Musk Silences a World-Class Pianist Without Saying a Word." Within hours, it had racked up over 12 million views. By sunrise, it was on every major social media platform, captioned with phrases like, "This isn't just music, it's a statement." He didn't outplay Julian. He outclassed him. When intellect meets emotion, this happens. Reddit lit up. Threads debated whether the composition was truly improvised. Music theorists jumped in to analyze the structure, comparing it to modernist composers like Satie or Glass. Some speculated that the piece was AI-assisted. Others swore it was pure Elon, the soul of a coder translated through keys and harmonics. Meanwhile, Julian Crane trended on X, formerly Twitter, but not for the reasons he was used to. Memes mocked his expression of disbelief. Some placed speech bubbles over his photo reading. "I may be a virtuoso, but I wasn't ready for Musk." The press didn't hold back either. The New York Times called the event an artistic ambush. Vanity Fair titled their piece, "The Day Elon Musk Became a Composer." CNN asked if this was a redefinition of creative intelligence. But what truly shocked the public was a comment under the video. Posted from Musk's verified account, it simply read, "Sometimes the best response isn't louder, it's deeper." Within minutes, that comment alone had over 1 million likes. Meanwhile, Julian Crane canceled 2 of his upcoming shows for creative rest. But the world wasn't resting. It was roaring with a new kind of admiration for a man they thought they already understood, now revealing a dimension no one saw coming. Elon didn't tweet again that week. He didn't have to. While the world raved about Musk's piano performance, very few knew the truth behind the haunting melody. It wasn't just a spontaneous act of genius. It was a memory. Years ago, long before Tesla, before SpaceX, before the headlines and controversies, there was a boy named Elon in Pretoria, South Africa. He didn't have many friends. The world didn't know what to do with a kid who read encyclopedias for fun and could write computer code at 12. But there was one place where he found peace. His grandfather's old piano. It sat in the corner of a dusty study, unused for years, but young Elon was drawn to it. Not for performance, but for refuge. When things were hard at school or at home, he would press those keys. Clumsy at first, until the notes started becoming words, and those words became thoughts he couldn't say out loud. The piece he played at the gala? It was that old melody. Rearranged, matured, but at its core, the same emotion, the same quiet pain and hope he'd poured into the keys as a boy. Backstage after the performance, someone from his team asked, "Where did that come from?" Elon didn't answer right away. He just stared into space for a moment, eyes darker than usual. Then he said softly, "Some things you don't build with metal or code. You build them from scars." That quote never made it to Twitter. No one recorded it, but the few who heard it felt it. Suddenly, his music made sense. It wasn't just Elon Musk trying to prove he could play the piano. It was Elon Musk telling the world, "You think you know me, but you don't know where the music started." And that changed everything. The clip of Elon Musk at the piano went viral within hours. News networks ran it on a loop. Reaction videos flooded social media. But something unexpected happened. Something deeper than the usual media frenzy. This time, the internet didn't laugh, mock, or dissect. It listened. For the first time in years, people weren't talking about Musk's tweets, his stock prices, or his Mars ambitions. They were talking about the man, the emotion, the vulnerability behind the steel and silicon facade. Commentators who once labeled him robotic and emotionally detached now referred to him as complex and deeply human. One viral tweet read, "I don't care how much money he has. I saw pain in those notes. Respect." Another said, "That wasn't a performance. That was a confession." Suddenly, thousands of people were sharing stories about their own childhood pianos, their struggles with loneliness, their need to be understood. And in the middle of it all was Elon Musk, not as a billionaire icon, but as someone relatable. The story had shifted. Even the classical pianist who mocked him originally posted a quiet retraction on Instagram, a photo of his own hands over a piano with the caption, "Humility is the purest note." Back at Tesla HQ, Elon's inner circle noticed something different. Their leader, usually a step ahead of the media storm, didn't try to steer the narrative. He let it breathe. He allowed the world to see a side of him he'd buried under rockets and code for decades. When a reporter from a major outlet finally caught up with him and asked, "Why now? Why music?" Elon replied with a half-smile and one sentence, "Because the things that matter most can't be automated." That quote ended up printed on the cover of Time, right under a black-and-white photo of him at the piano. In boardrooms and classrooms, in cafes and dorm rooms, the conversation shifted. This wasn't just about a man who could build electric cars and send rockets into orbit. This was about a man who reminded everyone that genius is not just intellect, it's emotion, struggle, article. And for once, the world didn't just admire Elon Musk, it understood him. By the time the weekend ended, Elon Musk's unexpected piano moment had become something more than just a trending video. It was a cultural ripple shaking corners of the world he never aimed to reach. From Berlin to São Paulo, from Tokyo's neon cafes to quiet book clubs in Ohio, people weren't just sharing the clip. They were analyzing it, feeling it. Music critics began dissecting the piece. They highlighted its unrefined structure, the untrained transitions, but they all arrived at the same baffled conclusion. It wasn't about technique, it was about truth. In an era dominated by filtered perfection, what Musk had unknowingly done was offer flawed sincerity, and it broke through a digital wall humanity had long forgotten existed. A famed poet from Argentina wrote on her blog, "A man who engineers the future sat down to speak in the language of the soul, and we heard him." At MIT, an AI ethics professor used the moment as a case study. She played the clip to a full auditorium and said, "If artificial intelligence ever hopes to mimic humanity, it must first learn how to feel. What Musk played can't be coded." The biggest surprise came not from intellectuals, but from teenagers. TikTokers with millions of followers created remixes, tributes, edits, transforming Elon's piano into an anthem of isolation and resilience. One of the top captions read, "When even geniuses feel lost, maybe we're all allowed to feel that way too." And then came the letters. Thousands. Not emails. Actual handwritten letters sent to Tesla, to SpaceX, to Neuralink's P.O. boxes. Children thanking him for making them believe that even the smartest people hurt. Veterans who hadn't touched a piano in decades saying they were inspired to try again. Single parents, artists, lonely coders, all pouring out words Musk never expected to hear. "You made me feel seen." Back inside his private study in Starbase, Elon read these letters in silence. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't tweeting. He was just present. He had built rockets to escape gravity. Now, without meaning to, he had released the emotional gravity holding others down. The world had always seen him as unreachable. Now they saw something else, a fragile brilliance behind the billion-dollar mind. And perhaps for the first time in his adult life, Elon Musk realized something more important than colonizing Mars. He could connect with Earth. 2 weeks later, something began to change. Not just in Elon, but in the way the world saw him. Gone were the flippant tweets, the cryptic emojis, the late-night philosophical polls. Instead, a quiet kind of intensity took their place, a kind that didn't demand attention, but earned it. Inside the glass walls of his Starbase office, Musk sat with his leadership team. Engineers, designers, neural scientists. The usual fast-paced energy was missing. In its place was a kind of reverent stillness. On the wall behind them, the clip of his piano playing looped on silent repeat. No one dared turn it off. Then Musk spoke. "I used to believe disruption came from code and fire," he said, eyes locked on the horizon. "But maybe it also comes from resonance, from sound, from vulnerability." There was no nodding, just silence. They were used to vision statements. They weren't used to this Musk. He tapped on the screen in front of him and pulled up a new proposal. Project Halcyon, an open-source, globally accessible neural music platform designed not for profit, but for healing. It would use real-time brainwave decoding to compose music based on emotion, trauma, hope, and memory. No ads, no paywall, just humanity, rendered in symphony. The team stared at the idea. One engineer whispered, "You're trying to make people feel safe." Musk turned to him. I'm trying to give them a language when words fail." Across the globe, whispers began swirling. Musk is pivoting. Not away from tech, but into something deeper, emotional utility. He didn't want to just build things, he wanted to rebuild people. CNN ran a panel titled, "Can Empathy Scale?" The New York Times called it, "Elon's Soft Revolution." But the loudest reaction came from someone unexpected, the world-class pianist who had originally mocked him. In a viral video, she addressed her followers. "I judged Elon Musk like I would any amateur, but I was wrong. What he played wasn't perfect, but it was honest. That's something many of us in my world have lost. I applaud him." Then she made a bold offer. A live duet. Her and Musk. Same piano. No rehearsal. The internet lost its mind. Back at Starbase, Musk said nothing. He simply nodded and booked a venue. The night of the performance arrived with a weight the world could feel. The venue? Carnegie Hall. The event? Billed as the Duet of Divergence. Inside the world-renowned hall, not a single seat remained empty. Outside, tens of millions were watching via live stream. Not since a moon landing had there been such collective anticipation for a piano performance. As the curtain rose, the spotlight revealed her first, the pianist. Dressed in understated black, her fingers rested gently on the Steinway keys. She didn't look nervous. She looked curious. Then he appeared, Elon Musk. No tuxedo, no fanfare, just a tailored charcoal jacket and black jeans. His walk to the piano was slow and deliberate, like a man not seeking applause, but peace. The crowd held its breath as they sat side by side. She nodded to him. He gave a faint nod back. And then, music. But not classical, not jazz. What poured from the stage was a symphony of contrasts. Her fingers danced with years of disciplined technique. His moved with raw intuition, uncertain but searching. The notes collided, clashed, merged, then ascended. Halfway through, Musk paused. He closed his eyes. And in that moment, the neural AI he had integrated into the performance activated. Brainwave data, his emotional currents, translated into live generative music. The system, codenamed Halcyon, filled the gaps between their notes with harmonies drawn from Musk's own subconscious. Audible gasps echoed. People weren't just hearing Musk, they were feeling him. At the final chord, neither pianist moved. The hall was silent, not from lack of emotion, but from its overwhelming presence. Then, thunderous applause. But it wasn't the crowd that brought Musk to tears. It was the pianist who leaned over and whispered into his ear, "You didn't just play with me. You let the world inside." That moment became a symbol, a meme, a movement. TikTok users began posting their own emotional improvisations. Musicians across the globe uploaded Halcyon-assisted duets. Therapists requested integrations. School programs began exploring music as emotional translation. And Elon Musk? He tweeted only 6 words. "We finally played the human code." The performance didn't just change how people saw him, it changed how they saw themselves. In the days that followed the Carnegie Hall performance, a ripple became a wave. Clips of the duet flooded social media, tagged under #, human code, #, Halcyon harmony, and simply #, Musk played. People didn't just share the performance, they dissected it, studied it, and more astonishingly, recreated it. Musicians who had never touched artificial intelligence were suddenly uploading renditions of their emotions, transposed into melody via brainwave-synced devices. Late-night hosts, once critics of Musk's eccentricities, played snippets of the duet in reverence. Major news networks ran headlines that read more like poetry than journalism. Elon Musk played a piano and touched a nerve in all of us. But praise wasn't universal. Some neuroscientists and ethicists raised alarm bells. The Halcyon system interprets brainwaves, yes, one MIT professor warned, but how long before it manipulates them? Church leaders weighed in, with one bishop stating, "We're flirting with turning the soul into software." The White House remained silent, though it was rumored that the Department of Defense had reached out to Neuralink within 48 hours of the performance. And yet, amidst the storm of opinions, Musk remained characteristically quiet, until he posted a single video. It was dimly lit, shot in his private home, showing him once again at the piano. This time, however, there was no audience, no world-class partner, no grandeur, only a child. His son, X. Sitting beside his father with tiny fingers barely reaching the keys, X laughed as his own brainwaves triggered soft, playful tones through a scaled-down version of Halcyon. There were no perfect harmonies, no polished scales, just joy. Musk turned to the camera. "This isn't about performance," he said. "It's about expression, connection. This isn't the future of music. It's the music of the future, raw, unfiltered, human." And just like that, the global conversation shifted again. Suddenly, schools in Finland began testing HALCYON-based empathy programs. A Berlin hospital initiated trials for nonverbal trauma patients. In Tokyo, an orchestra announced a new series, composed entirely from emotion. The duet at Carnegie had been the spark, but this was the ignition. The world wasn't watching a billionaire play music anymore. They were watching an idea evolve. And somewhere deep in the heart of it all, Elon Musk, mocked, doubted, and now echoed around the world, just kept listening, because the music had only just begun. Weeks after the world-altering duet, an invitation landed on the desk of Elon Musk. Not from a government, not from a tech summit, but from UNESCO. The request? To speak, Not about Mars, not about AI, but about art. It was surreal. A man once accused of dehumanizing technology was now being asked to speak on the intersection of emotion and expression in a digital age. Musk agreed, but insisted on one condition: no speech. He would play. At the Global Forum on Cultural Intelligence in Paris, world leaders, artists, and thinkers gathered in stunned anticipation. The event had been planned around climate change, migration, and economic realignment. And yet, on the final day, it was a piano that sat center stage. When Musk stepped out, this time in a white suit, he wasn't alone. Beside him stood the world-class pianist, who had once mocked him, and who now referred to him simply as partner. The lights dimmed, and for 45 minutes, no one spoke. The performance was unlike anything heard before. Halcyon, now upgraded, was no longer just reactive. It was conversational. The piano became a portal of silent dialogue between human intent and emotional truth. Each note felt like a confession. Each silence, a scream. Each crescendo, a revelation. Musk wasn't proving anything anymore. He was inviting. At the final chord, he stood and walked to the front of the stage. The audience rose before he even opened his mouth. When he finally did, he said only this: "We've always feared that machines would take our humanity, but what if they could help us find it?" Then he stepped down and left the stage. In the following months, a global initiative called Resonance was launched, linking refugee children, trauma patients, and isolated elders through emotion-translating instruments. Halcyon became open source. Empathy became scalable. And Elon Musk? He didn't tweet. He just played. In small rooms, for people who had forgotten what it felt like to be heard. The pianist? She never mocked anyone again. And the world? It didn't just remember the night a man played music. It remembered the night a man made humanity listen. In a world divided by noise, Elon Musk chose silence, and in doing so, turned technology into a bridge instead of a barrier. This wasn't just a performance, it was a movement, a reminder that even the most misunderstood minds can become the clearest voices, if only we're willing to listen.